Hello, sisters in front of the screen. I am Faye. Can you believe this? At the current dynasty princess's daughter's full moon banquet, the prince consort who climbed up by relying on the princess actually had the audacity to bring his childhood sweetheart and a pair of twins to force the palace and demand equal wife status. And even the mother-in-law publicly showed gender bias and mocked the princess. Oh my God, who could tolerate this? At my daughter's full moon banquet, the prince consort barged in with his mistress and boy-girl twins, saying he wanted to take her as an equal wife. I looked down at my newborn daughter in my arms and suddenly laughed out loud. He must have forgotten who it was that knelt in the imperial garden back then begging for the marriage decree. That mistress wore shoe brocade even more expensive than my dowry, kneeling to offer tea and calling me elder sister, while the twins crisply called me mother. My mother-in-law held her grandson with a grin from ear to ear, publicly saying that in 3 years all I gave birth to was an unwelcome girl. All the guests present were silent as cicadas in winter, waiting to see how this noble princess would swallow this ultimate humiliation. I took the scalding teacup, and under the prince consort's smug gaze, suddenly flipped my wrist. The scalding tea water poured entirely onto the mistress's front, ruining that carefully prepared shoe brocade. This palace's things, I'd rather destroy them than let those with ulterior motives touch them. In front of the vermilion lacquered gates of the princess's manor, 8 pairs of gilt lanterns lit up the night like daylight. Today is the full moon celebration of Princess Fuan. Princess Chang'ing stood in the main hall holding her daughter in swaddling clothes, receiving congratulations from the officials' wives. My fingertips brushed across my daughter's tender cheek. Looking at her features that resembled that person, my heart melted. The wife of the Minister of War has arrived. Following the announcement, a bejeweled woman stepped forward to pay her respects, but her gaze kept glancing behind me. I knew what she was looking for. Xu Yan was late again. This past month, he always had various excuses to avoid spending time with me and our daughter. The prince consort has arrived. The announcing eunuch's suddenly raised voice made my heart skip a beat. Looking up, Xu Yan crossed the threshold in moon-white brocade robes, his bearing upright like a pine or bamboo. 3 years, and this appearance could still leave me dazed. But there were 3 other people following behind him. A young woman dressed in cloud blue shoe brocade, eyes downcast and obedient, holding the hands of a pair of adorable children. I recognized that fabric. It was a treasure from last year's tribute from Nanzhao. In all of Great Liang, there were no more than 5 bolts. My imperial brother bestowed 2 bolts upon me. One in goose yellow was made into swaddling clothes for my daughter, and the other in cloud blue. Evrione, my apologies for arriving late. Xu Yan clasped his hands in salute, his voice gentle as jade. I'll take advantage of today's joyous occasion to introduce my family to all of you. He reached out to embrace that woman. This is Yuan Yang, my childhood sweetheart. If it weren't for the princess requesting an imperial decree for the marriage back then, the position of Madame Xu should have been hers now. The whole hall erupted in an uproar. The daughter in my arms suddenly began to cry, as if sensing something. I gently patted the swaddling cloth, but my nails dug into my palm. Childhood sweethearts. Who was it that knelt in the imperial garden back then, saying they fell for me at first sight? These 3 years Yuan Yang has stayed with me without caring about status, and even bore me a pair of dragon phoenix twins. Xu Yan bent down to pick up the little boy, his eyes showing a tenderness I had never seen before. Just as the princess gave birth to a daughter, double happiness arrives. I've decided to elevate Yuan Yang to equal wife status. My mother-in-law appeared in the hall at some point, took the little girl and kissed her over and over. This is the true lucky star of the Xu family, twins in one birth, and dragon phoenix bringing auspiciousness at that. She glanced sideways at the daughter in my arms. Not like certain people who only gave birth to a girl after 3 years, and still don't know how to show consideration for others. All the guests present fell silent as cicadas in winter. The female official sent by my imperial brother had already changed her expression, her hand moving to the sword at her waist. Liu Yuanyang suddenly knelt before me, received a cup of tea from a maid's hands, and held it high above her head. Elder sister, please drink this tea. The pair of twins also obediently knelt down, calling out crisply, "Greeting, mother." I stared at my own distorted reflection in the tea. Equal wife, the prince consort taking an equal wife? Our great Liang has never seen such an absurd thing in the 100 years since its founding. Did Shuyan eat the heart of a bear and the gall of a leopard? Or my gaze swept over the pair of twins who were about 3 years old, and I suddenly understood. They had planned this all along, choosing to force my hand publicly today just to put me in an impossible position. How thoughtful of you, sister. I released my palm that had been pinched red with marks, and accepted the teacup with a smile. Under Liu Yuanyang's gleeful gaze, my wrist suddenly tilted. Ah! The scalding tea spilled entirely on her front. The splashing tea scalded her hand red, and that priceless shoe brocade was instantly stained and filthy. The porcelain cup hit the ground with a crisp, shattering sound, like some kind of omen. Sorry, my hand slipped. I handed my daughter to the wet nurse, and unhurriedly removed the jade ring from my hand and tossed it in front of her. A reward for you. Go find a physician to take a look. Faye's complaint radar is beeping like crazy. Did you all see that, sisters? This is the classic combo of soft rice, hard-eating delusional man plus top-tier green tea bitch. Taking the female lead's money, living in the female lead's house, and still wanting to climb over the legitimate wife at the female lead's daughter's full moon celebration. That cup of boiling water was splashed so satisfyingly, if it were me, I would have just put the cup straight on her head. And what that mother-in-law said really hit all the triggers perfectly. Isn't it good for our royal little princess to be beautifully alone? This family literally has insatiably greedy written all over their faces. Shuyan's expression changed abruptly, just about to explode. When I raised my voice, "Everyone, please continue the feast. This palace is tired and will retire first." As I turned, I caught a glimpse of Liu Yuanyang's venomous eyes, and Shuyan holding her while comforting her in a low voice. Very well, since they chose this path. Let's see who ends up kneeling and begging for mercy in the end. Returning to my bedchamber, I immediately summoned my trusted confidant Qingshuang. Go investigate Liu Yuanyang's background. The more detailed the better, especially the birth records of those 2 children. I also retrieved a dragon pattern jade pendant from a hidden compartment. Deliver this to the emperor, and say, the Shu family has disloyal intentions. When Qingshuang received the dragon pattern jade pendant, her fingertips trembled slightly. Your Highness, are you really going to alert His Majesty? I removed the full head of jeweled hairpins, the bronze mirror reflecting a face as pale as paper. If Shuyan dares to publicly humiliate me at the full moon celebration, he should have thought about the consequences. As my hair bun came undone, a few fallen strands tangled around my fingers. The mental and physical exhaustion of this past month laid bare. The sound of wind and string instruments drifted in from outside the window. The banquet had not yet ended. Shuyan must be receiving congratulations from the guests with his yuanyang right now, as if they were the true masters of this estate. Go prepare a basin of hot water. I rubbed my temples. And have the shadow guards keep a close watch on the study. Record anyone who goes in or out. Qingshuang hesitated, as if wanting to say something, but ultimately sighed and went to prepare the hot water. In the rising steam, memories from 3 years ago became even clearer. That year, during the Shangxi festival, my imperial brother held a banquet at Kujiang Pool. I had just returned from cultivating at Mount Zhongnan, still wearing my Taoist robes, when I happened upon Shuyan, the youngest compiler at the Hanlin Academy, falling into the water. It was I who ordered the guards to rescue him, and I who was moved by his poem of gratitude, putting in a good word for him before my imperial brother. Later, he sent poems to the princess's residence every day, saying he had fallen for me at first sight. Those verses written on peach blossom paper are still kept at the bottom of my dressing case to this day. Your Highness, the water is getting cold. Qingshuang reminded me softly. Only then did I notice my nails had left crescent-shaped red marks on my palm again. Look into Liu Yuanyang. I cupped a handful of water and splashed it on my face. Focus on investigating what is really going on with her and Shuyan's so-called childhood sweetheart's story. When Qingshuang was combing my hair, the sounds of children playing came from outside the window. Through the diamond-patterned window, I saw Shuyan holding up the twins and spinning them around in the courtyard, while Liu Yuanyang leaned against a corridor pillar, laughing sweetly. What a picture of domestic bliss! If only this weren't the princess's manner. Oh, right! I suddenly remembered an important detail. Go check the birth dates of those children. Shuyan says they're 3 years old, but they look older than their actual age. Late at night, Qing Shuang returned with a chill in the air. She carried a roll of yellowed paper in her sleeve, her eyes flickering with flames of anger. "Your Highness guessed correctly." She unfolded the household registration document. "Lu Yuanyang isn't Shu Yan's fellow townswoman at all. She is the illegitimate daughter of Minister Liao. 5 years ago, the Liu family was convicted for colluding with remnants of the previous dynasty, and the women were sent to hard labor camps." I gasped. The Minister Liu case was a major case handled by my imperial brother after he ascended the throne, with far-reaching implications. Shu Yan actually dared to harbor the daughter of a convicted official? What is even more suspicious are these twins. Qing Shuang pointed at the medical records. According to what old Madame Shu bragged to others, the children were born last winter, but this servant found the midwife who delivered them back then, and she said the full-term babies were clearly born during the autumn equinox 3 years ago. I stood up abruptly, my skirt sash knocking over the teacup. 3 years ago, at the autumn equinox, was right before my wedding to Shu Yan. So Shu Yan had already, before the marriage, before the words had even finished. Footsteps sounded outside the door. Qing Shuang quickly put away the documents and flashed behind the screen, while I grabbed my embroidery hoop and pretended to be embroidering. Shu Yan pushed the door open and entered, carrying the jasmine scent that Lu Yuanyang commonly used. My stomach churned. "Princess still hasn't rested?" He stood at the edge of the candlelight, half his face hidden in shadow. The features that once made my heart flutter now seemed so unfamiliar. I continued threading the needle. "Instead of keeping your new lady company, what are you doing in my desolate place, consort?" He sat down unbidden and poured himself a cup of cold tea. "Regarding Yuanying's matter, I hope the princess will grant her blessing." The teacup landed heavily on the table. Of the 3 forms of unfilial conduct, having no heir is the worst. The princess has produced nothing in 3 years. The Shu family cannot be without succession. The embroidery needle suddenly pierced my index finger. I gently wiped away that trace. "The imperial physician said my constitution is special and needs care after that accident last year. That pregnancy was hardly going to last anyway." Shu Yan suddenly raised his voice. "You knew full well His Majesty was wary of my dealings with the Ministry of War. Yet you just had to get pregnant at that time." My whole body went cold. Last year, the Emperor brother did indeed remind me to pay attention to Shu Yan's connections with border generals, but I had only taken it as ordinary court suspicions. Thinking about it now, that accident likely had other secrets behind it. The matter of taking an equal wife has been decided by me. Shu Yan's tone softened, with a hypocritical air of mercy. "As long as the princess nods, you'll still be the legitimate wife. As for Fuan, I'll find her a good family." I nearly crushed the embroidery frame in my hands. My daughter, a princess of Great Liang. When is it his turn to arrange her marriage? I need 3 days to think it over. I lowered my eyelids to hide the coldness. Shu Yan rose with satisfaction. "The princess is reasonable." At the doorway, he turned back. "Oh right, the deeds to those few shops in the south of the city. Have the accounting office send them over tomorrow. Yuanyang is skilled at business management, perfect to help you handle them." After the door closed, Qing Shuang rushed out from behind the screen. "He dares to set his sights on your highness's dowry." I watched the candlelight with a cold laugh. Among the dowry my imperial brother bestowed upon me, the most valuable items were never the shops or fields, but that estate hiding the border defense maps. Shu Yan has finally shown his foxtail. "Tell the secret guards, I want copies of all of Shu Yan's correspondence from this past month." I removed the jade bracelet from my wrist and rewarded it to Qing Shuang. "Also have people keep close watch on Lu Yuanyang, especially how she contacts the outside world." Rain began falling in the latter half of the night. I lay on the empty canopy bed, listening to the sound of rain beating on banana leaves. Fuan cried once in the next room. The wet nurse said she'd been startled by the thunder. I wanted to go hold her, but feared the coldness on my body would frighten the child. At dawn, Qing Shuang returned with new information. She was drenched to the bone, yet her eyes were astonishingly bright. "Your Highness, the prince consort secretly met with a merchant from the Northern Territory half a month ago." She handed over a crumpled note. The shadow guards recognized that person as actually an envoy of the Turkic Khan. The note had only a few brief words. "Provisions ready. only awaiting the east wind. I clenched the note tight, hearing the sound of fate's gears turning. What Shu Yan wanted wasn't just the position of equal wife, he wanted my Lai family's empire. Go prepare ink and brush. I walked toward the desk. I need to write a letter to Imperial Brother. As Qing Shuang ground the ink, she suddenly lowered her voice. There is one more thing. Liu Yuanyang went to the abandoned temple in the west of the city before daybreak this morning and met with several suspicious people. The shadow guards said they mentioned Yang Master. My brush tip paused, and the ink bloomed into a dark blot on the rice paper. Things were even more complicated than I'd imagined. There was someone else behind Liu Yuanyang, and those twins probably weren't Shu Yan's blood either. Continue surveillance, but don't alert the prey. I wrote the final character, blew the ink dry. Tell Imperial Brother, the fish has taken the bait. The rain had stopped. An array of morning light pierced through the clouds. I looked out the window. Shu Yan was accompanying Liu Yuanyang on a stroll through the garden, with a pair of twins frolicking ahead of them. What a warm and tender scene. Too bad it would soon shatter into pieces. I stroked the cold defensive blade hidden in my sleeve. Recalling the first lesson my master taught me on Mount Zhongyan, to strike a snake, aim for its vital spot 7 inches down, and Shu Yan's vital spot has always been his laughable arrogance. The day Liu Yuanyang entered the residence, the entire princess's mansion was draped with red silk. I sat before the bronze mirror, letting Qing Shuang paint my eyebrows, while the sound of Suona outside pierced my eardrums painfully. To welcome her with the ceremony of a proper wife, Shu Yan really has some nerve. I touched up my rouge, my lips a vivid color. The person in the mirror wore phoenix crown and bridal robes, even more elaborate than my own wedding ceremony back then. Qing Shuang inserted the last golden hairpin into my hair bun. As per your instructions, the century-old ginseng and Tianshan snow lotus from the storeroom have been placed in conspicuous spots. The corner of my mouth lifted slightly. Those medicinal herbs were bestowed by my imperial brother, specifically for my postpartum recovery. Liu Yuanyang had already borrowed quite a few treasures these past few days under the pretext that the twins were frail. Greed is a good thing. The greedier one is, the more traces left behind. A burst of cheering suddenly erupted from the front courtyard. Qing Shuang pushed open the window a crack to look, and her expression immediately changed. Shu Yan is letting those twins ride on his neck during the bowing ceremony, and the guests are all praising how blessed the Dragon Phoenix twins are. I pulled out the golden hairpin and struck it hard against the vanity table, its sharp end leaving a deep pit in the sandalwood. Let them laugh. Soon enough, it'll be time to cry. At noon, I took Qing Shuang to the storage house. Sure enough, half of the newly stored snow lotus was missing, and the brocade box containing ginseng had also vanished without a trace. The old servant on guard knelt on the ground trembling. Lady Liu had the Fuma's token. This old slave didn't dare stop her. No matter. I took out a small celadon bottle from my sleeve and sprinkled some powder into the now empty medicine cabinet. Next time she comes, give her whatever she wants. That night at the third watch, Qing Shuang hurriedly woke me. The tracking powder worked. Liu Yuanyang's personal maid left the manor with the medicinal materials, and the shadow guards followed her to 10 Li Slope outside the city. There is a squad of private soldiers hidden there. I instantly became alert. 10 Li Slope was near the official road, a key route into the capital. How many people? At least 300, all armed with weapons. Qing Shuang handed me a piece of fabric. The shadow guards found this. Under the moonlight, I recognized it as wool felt, a specialty product from the northern border. Ordinary merchant caravans couldn't afford to use such material for tents. This was yet another piece of evidence of Shu Yan's secret dealings with external forces. The next morning, just as I finished breakfast, old Madame Shu barged in with her maids. The old lady was dressed in brown brocade, the golden hairpin on her bun, jingling with each step, looking exactly like a pompous clown jumping about. Princess, she placed a bowl of dark, murky medicinal soup in front of me. This is a fertility remedy that I specifically sought out. Yuanyang has already given birth to 2. Your belly should also show some signs by now. The medicinal soup gave off a strange, sweet smell. I forced myself to suppress my disgust and took it. Thank you for your concern, mother-in-law. Drink it while it is hot. Her cloudy eyes stared at me intently. The Shu family cannot have only illegitimate descendants. I pretended to drink. Then suddenly gagged and knocked over the medicine bowl. Sorry, old lady Shu left with a livid expression. I immediately had Qingshuang fetch a silver needle to test it. The needle tip instantly turned black. There is a problem? Qingshuang gasped. I shook my head. It is not an ordinary substance. I fetched a pot of orchids and poured the remaining medicine into it. In less than half a quarter hour, the green leaves began to turn yellow and curl up. Something that damages the body and harms the meridians, mixed in for at least 3 months. I laughed coldly. No wonder I've been feeling weak and dizzy ever since giving birth to Fuan. Turns out the scheme was laid long ago. Qingshuang wanted to go find the imperial physician, but I stopped her. Don't make a fuss yet. I took out another porcelain bowl. From now on, any medicine the old lady sends, pour it all in here to feed the flowers. 3 days later, that pot of orchids completely withered and died. I placed it in the most conspicuous spot on the windowsill, as a memento. After Lu Yuanyang entered the household, Shu Yan never came to my chambers again. This actually makes it easier for me to move around at night. By moonlight, I read through the letters copied by the secret guards, gradually piecing together Shu Yan's plan. He plans to make his move during the winter festival ceremony, coordinating from within with the rebels from the Northern Territory. Your Highness, should we report this to the Emperor now? Qingshuang asked worriedly. I shook my head. The evidence isn't enough yet. There must be someone behind Shu Yan. I thought of the young master, that Liu Yuanyang went to see, my heart tightening. Prepare the sedan, I need to enter the palace. When my imperial brother received me in the imperial study, he was reviewing military reports from the Northern Territory. After hearing my report, he actually showed an expression of having expected this. I've long suspected the Shu family was connected to the unusual activities at the border. He pushed aside a stack of secret memorials. 3 months ago, the Turkic Khan secretly met with someone from the Central Plains. Scouts said that person held a border defense map from the late emperor's time. My whole body went cold. That border defense map was entrusted to me by Father Emperor before his death, hidden in the Bia villa that came with my dowry. Shu Yan got close to me. From the very beginning it was for this. My imperial brother patted my hand. I've already sent people to strengthen the guards at the villa. What you need to do now is, he lowered his voice, pretend you know nothing. Let them think their scheme is succeeding. On the way back to the manor, I lifted the sedan curtain to look at the bustling marketplace. These people don't know that their peaceful lives are hanging by a thread. What Shu Yan wants isn't just power and influence, he wants to overthrow all of Great Liang. Your Highness, we've arrived. Qingshuang reminded me softly. Only then did I realize the sedan had stopped at the side entrance of the princess's residence. At this hour on normal days, the residence would already be brightly lit, but today it was pitch black. What is going on? Just as Qingshuang was about to answer, a figure suddenly rushed out from the darkness. My hidden guards immediately drew their weapons, but then we heard a thud. Xiao He, Liu Yuanyang's personal maid, knelt before me. Princess, save me, she kowtowed repeatedly in fear. Madame Liu wants to silence me forever. I brought her into the secret chamber. Xiao He trembled like a sieve, and revealed a shocking truth. Those twins were not Shu Yan's children at all, but orphans that Liu Yuanyang bought from human traffickers. Madame Liu has a flame tattoo on the inner side of her wrist, which is the mark of the remnants of the previous dynasty. Xiao He pulled up her sleeve, revealing the same tattoo. I was also coerced. I had Qingshuang take her to get bandaged and sat alone in the darkness for a long while. Shu Yan thought he had found true love. Little did he know he was just a pawn in someone else's scheme, pathetic and laughable. I am dying of laughter. This plot twist is absolutely incredible. That scumbag Shu Yan goes around every day with Dragon Phoenix twins bring prosperity to the family on his lips, thinking he is the chosen one, not realizing he has already been cuckolded big time, and the kids were even extras bought for 10 taels of silver. What is this? My days as a sucker, taking over for someone else at the Princess Manor. This guy's brain-dead operations are simply respect-worthy, being played like a fiddle by a remnant of the previous dynasty, and still feeling smug about it. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. So satisfying. In the days that followed, I acted despondent and listless. The medicinal soups old Madame Shu sent over, I drank them in front of her, actually pouring them into a hidden pocket in my sleeve. When Liu Yuanyang misappropriated items from the storehouse, I turned a blind eye. When Shuyan received suspicious guests in the manor, I claimed illness and stayed in my room. Everyone thought the princess had lost all hope. Only Qingshuang knew that every night I was organizing evidence by candlelight. The correspondence between Shu Yan and traitorous officials, Liu Yuanyang's contacts with remnants of the previous dynasty, evidence of old Madame Shu's attempts to harm me. One matter after another, one piece after another, all recorded in the memorial I was preparing to present to my imperial brother. On the 8th day of the 12th month, Shu Yan unexpectedly came to my room. He wore the pine and bamboo patterned robe I had personally embroidered, yet his body carried the jasmine scent Liu Yuanyang habitually used. "In a few days during the winter sacrifice, you don't need to go, princess." He casually flipped through my vanity case. "You're in poor health. Better to rest at home." I kept my head down, embroidering Fuan's belly band, my stitches perfectly even, whatever the prince consort decides. "Oh right." He suddenly turned around as he was leaving. "After the winter ceremony, I'm taking Yuanyang and the children back to the ancestral estate for ancestor worship. The manor. I'll leave it to the princess." I bit off the thread and looked up at him with a sweet smile, wishing the prince consort a smooth and worry-free journey. He clearly didn't catch the true meaning in my words, and left contentedly. I stroked the adorable koi pattern on the belly band. The fish was finally about to bite the hook. That night, I received a secret letter from Imperial Brother. The border garrison had been secretly rotated, and the Imperial Guard commander had laid an inescapable net at the winter ceremony, just waiting for Shu Yan and his accomplices to walk into the trap. "Qingshuang!" I gazed at the snowflakes drifting outside the window. "Go bring Fuan here tonight. I want to sleep holding her." The child slept soundly, her little hand unconsciously clutching at my collar. I gently kissed her forehead and swore in my heart, "Mother will never let anyone hurt you, whether it is your hypocritical father or that vicious stepmother tomorrow at the winter ceremony. Everything will finally come to light." On the day of beginning of spring, I held a flower viewing banquet at the Princess Manor. Red plum blossoms bloomed fiercely in the garden, and the specially invited gardener from Jiangyan had also forced the peonies in the hothouse to bloom. In this garden full of spring colors, who could imagine the hidden murderous intent? "Ladies, please have some tea." I lifted the Yueware Celadon teacup and smiled at the dozen or so noblewomen present. Most of them were family members of officials Shu Yan had been getting close to recently, with several of their husbands serving in the Ministry of War. Liu Yuanyang sat to my lower right, her water-red Ruquan dress making her skin look like congealed cream. Ever since becoming a co-wife, she'd grown increasingly flamboyant. Today she was even wearing the filigree gold phoenix hairpin from my dowry in her hair. "Sister, you've raised these peonies so well." She picked up a piece of osmanthus cake but didn't eat it. Instead, she crumbled it to feed the thrush in the corridor. "Even more gorgeous than the ones back home in Suzhou." I smiled with pursed lips. "Sister, you jest. Since when do they have peonies in Suzhou?" One of the ladies present, the wife of a vice minister of war, was from Suzhou and immediately looked up at these words. Liu Yuanyang's expression flickered. Then she giggled coquettishly. "I misremembered. It was Luoyang. I went there with my father on business when I was little." I pretended not to notice the vice minister's wife's suspicious expression. Qingshuang had already investigated thoroughly. The Liu family had been in the capital the whole time before their conviction, and Liu Yuanyang had never been to Luoyang at all. "Speaking of business," I turned toward the wife of the Minister of Revenue, as if casually. "I heard the horse markets up north have been bustling lately. Doesn't your family have a merchant caravan? You must have made quite a profit, right?" The minister's wife set down her teacup, her jade bracelet clinking on her wrist. "The princess is joking. Ever since the Turks caused trouble last year, there hasn't been any horse market. My husband said that if the border doesn't stabilize, I'm afraid there is going to be big trouble." From the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Liu Yuanyang clutching her handkerchief tightly. Her husband Shu Yan was in charge of military supply allocation in the northern border. These words were clearly a slap in his face. Halfway through the banquet, Xiao He suddenly came running over in a panic and whispered a few words in Liu Yuanyang's ear. Liu Yuanyang immediately stood up to apologize, saying the twins had a fever and she needed to go back to look after them. "The children come first," I said with concern. "It just so happens that the imperial physician gave me some calming herbs the other day. Shuang, go to the storehouse and get some for Lady Lu to take with her." When Lu Yuanyang gave her thanks, I clearly saw a flash of wariness in her eyes. Smart as she was, she must have noticed the recent anomalies. Why was it that every time she took away herbs, it would ultimately lead us to discover one of their secret hideouts? After the banquet ended, Shuang helped me back to my room. As soon as we entered, she lowered her voice. "We got it!" She pulled out a stack of papers from her bosom. Everything from the secret chamber in the prince consort study. I copied it all down. I quickly flipped through them, my heart sinking deeper with each page. Xu Yan had not only colluded with external forces, but also embezzled my dowry to purchase military equipment. The ledger clearly recorded 30,000 taels of silver from selling the shop in the south of the city, used to forge armor, the estate deed in the east of the city, mortgaged to purchase 500 war horses. And there is something even more shocking. Shuang pulled out another letter from her sleeve. This was found in a hidden compartment of Lu Yuanyang's dowry chest. The paper had already yellowed, but the writing on it was still clear. "My daughter Yuanyang, you must use the Shu family's power to find the young master. The great cause of restoring our nation rests on your shoulders. Those with the flame mark can all be trusted." My fingers trembled. It had been over 20 years since the previous dynasty fell, yet there were still people unwilling to let it go. No wonder Liu Yuanyang wanted to get close to Xu Yan. What she valued was the Shu family's influence in the northern territories. Has the matter of the twins been verified? Shuang nodded and took out a medical record. This servant questioned the midwife who delivered them. Those children were born to disaster victims from Hexi and ended up abandoned due to circumstances. Lu Yuanyang took them to pass off as the Shu family's bloodline. I laughed coldly. Xu Yan kept saying that Liu Yuanyang had given him auspicious dragon phoenix twins, little knowing it was a complete and utter joke. What about Xiao He's side? "Following your highness's instructions, we've already accidentally let Liu Yuanyang discover that she was sneaking peeks at the secret letter." A flash of shrewdness crossed Shuang's eyes. That girl is scared out of her wits now, willing to cooperate with anything. I looked out the window. Dusk had already shrouded the courtyard. It was time to close the net. "Prepare the sedan chair. I'm going to the palace." In the imperial study, after the emperor brother heard my report, he immediately summoned the commander of the imperial guards. The three of us studied the map for half the night, finally settling on a plan. On the day of the winter festival, the imperial guards will ambush around the altar, and once the other party shows up, they'll immediately close the net. As for the Shu manor, imperial brother hesitated. I understood his concerns. "Imperial brother, rest assured, I have my own arrangements." On the way back to the manor, I specifically had the sedan bearers take a detour through the southern part of the city. That villa hiding the border defense maps still stood quietly in the moonlight, but there were several dark figures in the shadows. They were secret guards sent by imperial brother. As soon as I returned to the sleeping quarters, Shuang hurried up to me. "Your Highness, Liu Yuanyang just left the manor with the twins. Did you follow them?" The secret guards tailed them all the way and found they went to a residence in the back alley of the city god temple. Shuang handed me a note. "There is a young man inside. Xiao He says he is the young master they've been talking about." I unfolded the note, which showed the man's physical characteristics, in his early 20s, with a black mole on his left eyebrow, missing part of his right pinky finger. This description felt strangely familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen it before. "Continue surveillance, but don't alert them." I rubbed my temples, the consecutive days of toil making me somewhat dizzy. "Where is Xu Yan?" "In the study, says he is handling military affairs, and won't allow anyone to disturb him." I sneered. "What military affairs? He is clearly preparing his treacherous scheme. But this works out perfectly, makes it easier for us to act." In the dead of night, I was awakened by urgent knocking. Shuang rushed in with a deathly pale face. "Your Highness, Xiao He has been killed." "What?" "A person was found in the back courtyard. On the surface it looked like an accident." Shuang's voice trembled, but this servant discovered something suspicious. Clearly someone was silenced. I gripped the corner of the blanket tightly. It must be that Liu Yuanyang discovered Xiao He's betrayal. That woman who smiled so gently and tenderly, struck with such vicious cruelty. Go tell the secret guards to strengthen the watch over Fuan. I suddenly remembered something. Wait, has the wet nurse shown any unusual behavior these past 2 days? Qing Shuang was startled. She asked for leave yesterday to go home and see her son, only returned this morning. Does your highness suspect her? Alarm bells rang loudly in my heart. Go check Fuan's room immediately. Qing Shuang ran off at full speed. I hastily threw on an outer robe and followed. Passing through the corridor, I saw the light in Shuyan's study was still on. 2 silhouettes reflected on the window paper. The other one was clearly a woman. The door to Fuan's room was left ajar. My hand trembled as I pushed it open. The cradle was completely empty, the wet nurse nowhere to be found. Your Highness! Qing Shuang picked up a note from under the cradle. If you want the child back, come alone tomorrow at noon with the border defense map to the back alley of the city god temple. My legs went weak. I had to hold on to the doorframe to keep from collapsing. They actually dared to take my Fuan. Prepare a horse. I squeezed out the command through clenched teeth. Go to the city god temple right now. Qing Shuang blocked me. Your Highness, please think thrice. This is clearly a trap. That is my daughter, I nearly shouted, then suddenly lowered my voice. Go notify the Emperor, but don't alert the Imperial Guards. What they want is the border defense map. Before they get it, Fuan is safe. Qing Shuang was about to dissuade me when suddenly a commotion came from outside the courtyard. We rushed to the window and saw a squad of Imperial Guards holding torches barging into the residence. Leading them was Eunuch Li from the Emperor's side. Imperial edict has arrived. Eunuch Li's shrill voice pierced the night sky. Prince Consort Shuyan, receive the edict. The study door burst open, and Shuyan rushed out, followed by Liu Yuanyang. Wasn't she supposed to have left the residence with the twins? As Shuyan knelt to receive the edict, I noticed something unusual about his sleeve cuff. Eunuch Li unfurled the imperial edict, his voice booming. By the mandate of heaven, the Emperor decrees, upon investigation, Prince Consort Shuyan has been secretly conspiring with treasonous intent and is to be immediately arrested. Shuyan suddenly erupted into action, shoving Eunuch Li aside and running toward the courtyard wall. The Imperial Guards immediately moved to block him. But Liu Yuanyang's sleeves released hidden weapons, striking down 2 guards. She actually knew martial arts. In the chaos, I pulled Qing Shuang behind a corridor pillar. You go find Fuan, I said urgently. I'll go check the study. The study was a complete mess. Shuyan had clearly destroyed many documents in haste. I pried open the hidden compartment. It was completely empty. The border defense map was indeed gone. The sound of fighting came from outside the window. I poked my head out to look, and saw Liu Yuanyang weaving through the Imperial Guards like a ghost, about to escape at any moment. At the critical moment, a black shadow swooped down from the roof and firmly subdued and captured her. It was my Shadow Guard commander, Mo Ying. Shuyan wasn't so lucky. He was pinned to the ground by 3 Imperial Guards, his official hat fallen off, his hair disheveled, looking exactly like a stray dog that lost its home. Eunuch Li walked up to me and bowed. Princess, you've been frightened. His Majesty ordered this servant to inform you that the young princess has been safely recovered. Where? I grabbed his arm. At the Empress Dowager's palace. Someone tried to take the young princess out of the palace, but was stopped by the guards in time. I let out a long breath of relief, then frowned again. What about the wet nurse? She already took her own life out of guilt, Eunuch Li said in a low voice. She had a flame tattoo on her wrist. Everything suddenly became clear. The wet nurse was a remnant of the previous dynasty. Her request for leave was a pretense. She was actually going to pass on information, and Liu Yuanyang deliberately created the illusion of taking the twins out of the residence to divert my attention. Your Highness! Qing Shuang ran over, panting. This servant caught a suspicious-looking servant at the back gate and searched this from him. She opened her palm, revealing an exquisite white jade pendant with half a verse carved on it. It was the other half of the love poem Shuyan wrote for me back then. I was struck as if by lightning. Finally remembered why the description of young master felt familiar. 3 years ago, at the imperial brother's wedding banquet, there was a young musician who was punished and lost part of his pinky finger. That person had a black mole on his left eyebrow and had once shown me a strange smile. "Prepare the palanquin," I straightened my collar. "I must enter the palace immediately to see His Majesty. The truth is about to come to light, and the counterattack has only just begun." Palace lanterns illuminated the imperial study as bright as day. Imperial brother's face turned iron blue as he finished listening to my report, the vermilion brush in his hand snapping in two. "People from the previous dynasty are still plotting in the shadows?" His voice was low like thunder. "And they've been lurking under my nose all these years." I rubbed that half-piece of white jade pendant. The musician at the estate back then was very likely the true identity of this young master. The late emperor was magnanimous, only punishing the ringleaders. Who would have thought? Magnanimity has been repaid with schemes. Imperial brother slammed the table, startling Eunuch Lee into a shudder. "The winter sacrifice ceremony will be moved up to tomorrow. I want to see what other tricks these clowns can play." I bowed my head in acknowledgement, but my gaze fell on the alley behind the city god temple on the map. Fuan was still in the Empress Dowager's palace, but that young master who impersonated the musician was still at large. If he discovers the plan has been exposed, will he stop at nothing? "Imperial brother, your humble sister has a presumptuous request." I knelt down. "When we close the net tomorrow, please allow your humble sister to personally face Shu Yan and Liu Yuanyang." Imperial brother helped me up, a trace of heartache flashing through his eyes. Granted. It was already the third watch when I returned to the princess's manor. The manor was completely silent, only the study still had its lamp lit. Qing Shuang was organizing evidence. Pushing the door open, I was stunned by the scene before me. Mo Ying knelt on one knee, his mask placed aside, letting Qing Shuang bandage the wound on his shoulder. Under the candlelight, that face suddenly overlapped with a certain scene in my memory. 7 years ago, when I was in danger at Zhongnan Mountain, it was you who protected me. Mo Ying's entire body stiffened. Then he lowered his head. This subordinate was only fulfilling his duty. I moved closer for a careful look, and sure enough found a faint scar on his left brow. That guard from back then, who recklessly shielded me with his own body, had been by my side all along. "Where is your jade pendant?" I suddenly asked. Mo Ying looked up in surprise. I took out a brocade pouch from the bottom of my vanity case and poured out half a broken jade pendant. Mo Ying was silent for a moment, then took out the other half from his chest. "They fit perfectly," Qing Shuang gasped. I gripped the complete jade pendant tightly, countless questions surging in my heart, but now was not the time to press for answers. "There are still important matters tomorrow." I returned the jade pendant to him. "Your injury. It is fine." Mo Ying put his mask back on, his voice returning to its steady tone. "This subordinate has discovered that Liu Yuanyang has 3 more hidden locations in the city and have already sent people to monitor them." I nodded and turned to Qing Shuang. "Is all the evidence organized?" Qing Shuang brought out a stack of documents. Letters of the prince consort's secret collusion, ledgers of misappropriated dowry, evidence of Liu Yuanyang's dealings with related personnel, and also, she pulled out a piece of yellowed paper, the transfer contract for the twins. I ran my fingers over these papers, each one stained with the Shu family's misdeeds. Tomorrow, I will tear off these hypocritical masks one by one in front of everyone. On the day of the winter festival, light snow began to fall from the sky. I stood in the curtained enclosure outside the altar, watching Shu Yan being escorted to the scene by the imperial guards. His official robes were neat, but couldn't hide the dark circles under his eyes. Liu Yuanyang followed behind him, still with that gentle appearance, except there was an extra layer of restraint on her wrist, hidden inside her wide sleeves. "Princess." Seeing me, a trace of panic flashed in Shu Yan's eyes. "Yesterday's incident was purely a misunderstanding. The prince consort worries too much." I smiled and interrupted. "His Majesty sees all with clarity. If the prince consort is innocent, naturally there will be no wrongful accusation." The ceremony began, and my imperial brother ascended the high platform dressed in ceremonial robes. As the officials knelt in worship, I noticed several military generals had their hands on their waists. Liu Yuanyang kept looking toward the southeast. That was the direction of the city god temple. When the high priest recited, "Bless our great Liang, may the dynasty prosper eternally," a red smoke arrow suddenly rose from the southeast. Almost simultaneously, dense footsteps came from the woods surrounding the altar on all sides. "Protect His Majesty." With a single command from the Imperial Guard commander, hundreds of guards surged out from below the altar, surrounding all the officials. Shu Yan suddenly sprang into action, tearing open his official robe to reveal the soft armor underneath. "Attack!" However, only silence answered him. Those who should have rushed out were now being escorted out from the woods by the Imperial Guards, led by none other than that young master missing his pinky finger. "Impossible!" Liu Wenyang shrieked. "We were clearly well prepared," Imperial brother sneered. "Your people are now obediently staying in the dungeon." I walked up to Shu Yan and looked at his ashen face. "Is the prince consort looking for this?" I pulled out a roll of sheepskin from my sleeve and unfurled it. It was the border defense map. Shu Yan's eyes nearly split with rage. "It is fake." I tossed the map in front of him. "The real border defense map was handed over to Imperial Brother 3 months ago for redeployment. What you got was a counterfeit made by a Western region's artist." Faye's fangirl screaming moment. Who says princesses can only be delicate greenhouse flowers or dumb sweethearts who need protection? Our Princess Chang'ing is a hidden max-level boss who trained at Mount Zhongyan. Physical plus magical dual output. This fake map, empty fort strategy directly flipped over both the scumbags and the traitors' trump cards. This absolute intellectual crushing is extremely satisfying. Never mess with a woman who knows martial arts, has brains, emotional stability, and imperial power backing. This is the correct way to portray a strong female lead. Scumbag, your doomsday has arrived. Suddenly broke free from her restraints, a blade sliding from her sleeve as she attacked me. I dodged to the side and seized her wrist with a twist, skillfully deflecting her force, accompanied by Liu Wenyang's cry of pain. Everyone present froze, including Imperial Brother. No one expected that the pampered princess would have such skills. 5 years of Taoist training at Mount Zhongnan wasn't just about chanting sutras. I threw Liu Wenyang aside and took the handkerchief Qingshuang handed me to wipe my hands. Master said I was naturally built for martial arts. I just never thought the first time I'd use it would be against people from my own household. Shu Yan stared at me like I was a stranger. You've been pretending all along. Not as much as the prince consort." I signaled the Imperial Guards to bring up the twins. "These 2 children, does the prince consort still recognize them?" Shu Yan looked at the 2 children, a trace of hesitation flashing in his eyes. "Of course they're my bloodline. Is that so?" I took out the document contract. 3 years ago, at the autumn equinox, relevant personnel from Hexi gave this pair of orphans to Liu Wenyang for adoption. Do we need to take blood for a face-to-face confrontation? Liu Wenyang collapsed to the ground and suddenly laughed loudly. "Shu Yan, you deserve this. Did you really think I would leave descendants for an incompetent person like you?" Shu Yan's face turned from white to blue-green, and he suddenly lunged at Liu Wenyang. "Shameless wretch!" When the Imperial Guards pulled them apart, Shu Yan's official hat had fallen off. His hair was disheveled, where was even half a trace of a Hanlin Academy scholar's bearing. I signaled Qingshuang to bring over a bowl of clear water. "Since the prince consort doesn't believe it, how about we verify the blood relation?" Shu Yan tremblingly pricked his fingertip. When the 2 drops of blood remained distinctly separate in the water, he completely broke down, kneeling on the ground, muttering to himself, "Impossible. Dragon and Phoenix twins, an auspicious omen for the family." "Auspicious for the family?" I laughed coldly. "Shu Yan, for this pair of children of unknown origin, you ignored your biological daughter, schemed against your legal wife, colluded with outsiders. Now tell me, who is the real source of disaster?" Imperial Brother stepped forward at the right moment. Prince Consort Captain Shu Yan harbored evil intentions and plotted treachery, with irrefutable evidence. According to the Great Liang legal code, he shall be severely punished without leniency. The Liu clan shares the same crime and shall be dealt with accordingly. Your Majesty, show mercy. Shu Yan suddenly grabbed my leg. "Princess, for the sake of our past affection." I kicked him away with 1 foot. "Affection?" Taking out the marriage certificate from my chest, I set it aflame in front of everyone. "From the moment you brought Liu Wenyang into the manor to scheme against me, there was no more affection between us." In the firelight, Imperial Brother asked me how to deal with those twins. I looked at the two terrified children and sighed. Send them to the orphanage bureau. They're also pitiful people who were exploited. After the related parties were taken away, Imperial Brother took my hand and walked up to the altar. Below the platform, all the officials knelt and shouted, "Long live." The snow stopped, and a ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds, shining on the phoenix pattern jade pendant on my chest. "Chang Ning," Imperial Brother said softly. "Fuan is waiting for you in the palace." 3 months later, the plaque above the main gate of the former Shu Manor was replaced with 4 large characters, Fuyao Academy. I held Fuan and stood on the steps, watching the first batch of female students timidly walk through the door. Qing Shuang is now the academy's general manager, busy arranging the dormitories. Mo Ying, we should call him Xiaojing Xing now, the Shadow Guard commander who had recovered his real name, is in charge of the academy's security. "Your Highness, the Ministry of Revenue has sent the land deeds." Xiaojing Xing handed over a stack of documents. After the Shu family was raided, His Majesty transferred all their legitimate properties to the academy. I nodded. Until his death, Shu Yan never knew that everything he schemed so hard to obtain ultimately became Fuan's foundation. Fuan in my arms suddenly babbled and reached out, grabbing the jade pendant at my waist. It was bestowed by Imperial Brother during my coming-of-age ceremony, with 4 small characters engraved on it. Eternal joy and peace. Be good, this is saved for Fuan. I kissed my daughter's cheek. When you grow up, Mother will teach you to read and practice martial arts. We don't need to rely on anyone. We can still stand tall on our own. As the spring breeze brushed past the peach tree in front of the academy, amidst the falling petals, I seemed to see that little Taoist girl from Mount Zhongyan smiling at who I am now. Actually, after reading this story, as a college student, I was deeply moved. So many times, societal views or traditional ancient concepts tell women, marrying into a good family is a lifetime of security. For the sake of the children and family, women must learn to endure and yield. But Princess Changning, through her actions, slapped this kind of thinking hard across the face. When the prince consort flaunted his so-called childhood sweethearts and dragon phoenix twins, the princess didn't act like a traditional resentful wife crying, making scenes, or threatening suicide, nor did she swallow her anger to maintain the so-called imperial dignity. On the contrary, she displayed extremely powerful emotional stability and problem-solving ability. Because she understood clearly, endless yielding won't earn respect. It will only invite people to take a mile when given an inch. This reminds me of when I first started university and joined the debate team, where I encountered an extremely arrogant senior, basically a modern-day Shu Yan. He not only stole the project results our group had stayed up all night working on to take credit for himself, but also gaslighted us in private, saying girls can't think logically, and we should be grateful just to have our names on it. At the time, several girls in our group cried from anger, thinking that for the sake of our future credit evaluations, maybe we should just let it go. But there was this fire in my head. Why should we? I secretly collected evidence of the timeline showing when he took our first draft, recordings of our discussions, and went straight over his head to the supervising professor. In the end, that senior got officially reprimanded, and we took back the honor that belonged to us. So when I saw Princess Changing collecting evidence, drawing the snake out of its hole, and finally taking down the enemy in one move at the Winter Festival ceremony, I practically wanted to give her a standing ovation through the screen. True strength isn't about how loud your voice is, but how strong the cards you are holding are. *** Beyond that, the ending of the story elevated the entire theme even further. After getting rid of the scumbag, the princess didn't choose to return to the palace and continue being a pampered hothouse flower, but instead turned the Shu estate into Fuyao Academy, giving more girls the opportunity to study and practice martial arts. What she said to her daughter, ***, we don't need to rely on anyone, we can still stand tall on our own ***. That is truly the soul of the entire book. That is right, sisters. No matter what era we're in, a girl's greatest confidence always comes from herself. Whether it is knowledge, combat power, or the ability to make money, these are the dowry that no one can take away, rather than expecting some elusive support. It is better to build your own Fuyao Academy. I hope that each and every one of us girls, when we encounter the Shu Yan in our lives, will have the courage to walk away. When facing challenges, will have the wisdom to rise to the occasion. Don't cling to others, don't settle, be the one who controls your own life. Alright, that is it for today's Fae book sharing. See you in the next story. Remember to stay clear-headed and keep shining.